It's hard to believe it takes 12 bees their entire life just to make 1 teaspoon of honey. There was even a time in our history where you didn't keep bees. You just went into the woods, you found a bee tree, and you cut it down and you took all the honey you wanted. And it seemed like it was an endless supply. You could cut down about 30 trees a week if you were ambitious. Unfortunately for the bees, it always wound up in their termination of the colony. They'd either just abandon what was left of it or set it on fire. It reminds us of the early settlers, how they hunted bison to the point of near extinction. Fortunately, there was some forward-thinking individuals came up with some really interesting concepts on how to keep bees. And they, if you will, no pun intended, they worked out all the bugs. They really got a good system of beekeeping down, and these men are the forefathers of beekeeping. And right around the 1920s, that's when things started to change, unfortunately not for the better. Bees began to be housed in very thin-walled hives, trucked all over the country, and then just placed in orchards where all they could do was pollinate just one crop for weeks on end. After harvesting nearly every drop of honey from our bees, the beekeepers would then in turn give the bees things like corn syrup or sugar water, or even things like soda pop as a replacement for the honey that they took from them. Obviously, a high sugar diet is not what the bees were intended to eat, and as a result they began to get diseases. And so with the diseases came chemical treatments, and with the chemical treatments came toxic chemicals, which in turn goes into the honey, goes into the wax, and then gets to the consumer. So it really doesn't matter if you buy local honey or raw honey if the beekeeper is using one or more of these modern practices on his bees. The good news to all this is that there is a small handful of beekeepers who went back to the old books written by the early innovators of beekeeping and are practicing sustainable, cruelty-free beekeeping methods. And when I build a beehive, I build it with the bee in mind. If this bee were in the wild, he would want to have the comfort he would find living in a tree hollow. So when you look at my bee yard, you might not even recognize my beehives at first. That's because they're built with the bee in mind. My honey is raw, it's never heated, no microfiltration, I don't dehydrate it, and I don't live near any big agriculture. I don't use any plastic or chemicals. There's a lot of biodiversity of plants. I use local bees, and I practice cruelty-free beekeeping methods. Hi friends, I'm Jean Renee, and this is how I keep bees.